On a July afternoon in 2011, three friends from California's Central Valley stood at the top of a waterfall in Yosemite, laughing, phones out, trying to get one perfect photo. They had driven up for a single-day trip with their church group. They stepped over a low metal railing to reach a rock in the middle of the river. One of them slipped on the wet granite. A second reached out to help and went in too. Then a third. Witnesses said the current took all three over the edge of a 317-foot drop, while others in their group watched from the trail. None of them survived. Rangers didn't recover the last body until months later. It sounds like a freak accident, a once-in-a-generation horror. It wasn't. Some version of this happens almost every single week of the summer. Yosemite National Park welcomes more than 4 million people a year. The overwhelming majority go home with full camera rolls and nothing worse than sore legs. But underneath the postcards is a number the tourism brochures never print. Since the park was created in 1890, researchers estimate that roughly 1,300 people have died inside its boundaries. That's around a dozen deaths a year, year after year, for more than a century. Analysts now rank Yosemite among the 3 deadliest national parks in America. And here's the part that should stop you. The deadliest stretch runs May through September, the very season when roughly 3 out of every 4 annual visitors pour through the gates. The crowds and the killing peak together, which is why in the towns around this park, a growing number of locals have started saying something once unthinkable about one of America's crown jewels. Please stop coming. To understand why, you have to understand what Yosemite actually is. It sprawls across nearly 1,200 square miles of the Sierra Nevada, granite walls thousands of feet high, more than 750 miles of trail, dozens of waterfalls fed by snowmelt, and a river that turns lethal without warning. But almost nobody experiences that raw wilderness first. What they experience is a parking lot, shuttle buses, gift shops, pizza counters, paved overlooks with railings and interpretive signs. The valley floor has been engineered into something that feels like a theme park, and that feeling is the first lie the place tells you. Because the granite doesn't know it's a tourist attraction. The river doesn't slow down for family vacations. The infrastructure whispers that everything is controlled and safe, and people believe it right up until the mountain proves otherwise. The deceptions come in layers. The first is the crowd itself. When you're standing shoulder to shoulder with hundreds of other tourists, your brain reads safety in numbers. Surely nothing truly dangerous could happen somewhere this busy. But a crowd doesn't make cold water warmer or a cliff edge less final. The second deception is the water. Yosemite's rivers and pools look inviting, especially on a hot afternoon. But they're fed by mountain snowmelt that stays near freezing even in July. Slip in, and the cold can seize your muscles in seconds. The third deception is the calm. A river that's ankle-deep and gentle in one spot is a churning wall of force 50 feet downstream, right where it drops off a cliff you can't see coming. Yosemite hides its most dangerous moments behind its most beautiful views, not out of malice, but because that's simply how the landscape is built. If you want to know what actually kills people here, the answer is gravity. Falls are the single leading cause of death in Yosemite, and it's not close. Between 2007 and 2023 alone, more than 50 people died from falls, off overlooks, off trails, off cliff edges they walked right up to. Many of them died doing something that would have been unremarkable anywhere else, taking a picture. If you like this video, don't forget to like and subscribe. It helps the channel grow and provide videos like this in the future. Thanks! Places like Taft Point and Glacier Point drop thousands of feet with no barrier at all, and every year visitors edge backward for a better frame and simply run out of ground. In 2019, an 18-year-old visiting from Jerusalem climbed past the railing near the top of Vernal Fall to photograph himself. He lost his footing and fell nearly 600 feet. The mountain doesn't offer second chances, and it doesn't care how good the photo would have been. And it isn't only the unprepared who die here. Consider the climbers. Yosemite's El Capitan is a 3,000-foot granite monolith, the most famous big wall on Earth, and it draws the most skilled climbers alive. More than 30 of them have died on that rock. In October of 2025, A young American climber was live streaming his ascent of El Capitan to an audience watching in real time when he fell to his death. He wasn't a tourist in flip-flops, he was an expert doing what he'd trained for years to do. That's the truth locals understand that visitors don't. Yosemite kills the experienced and the reckless with equal indifference. Skill buys you a little more margin, but the margin is never zero, and the park is very patient. It will wait for the one wet handhold, the one gust of wind, the 1 second of overconfidence. Then there's the water, which deserves its own warning. Yosemite's waterfalls are the reason many people come, and they are quietly among the deadliest features in the park. Vernal Fall alone has swept more people to their deaths than any other waterfall here, at least 17 since rangers started keeping records back in 1924. The pattern almost never changes. The river above the fall looks like a swimming hole. People wade in to cool off or cross the barricade for a photo. The granite underfoot is polished glass, smooth and slick with mist. Once the current has you, there's no swimming against it, and the cold shuts your body down fast. In heavy snow years, the danger multiplies. In 2011, after a winter that dumped triple the normal snowpack, the rivers ran so violent that the park lost 20 people that single year, 7 of them to water. The same beauty that fills the parking lots fills the morgues. And some of Yosemite's dangers give no warning at all. The same glaciers that carved these spectacular cliffs left them fractured and unstable, and the mountain is still, slowly, coming apart. Rockfalls are a constant fact of life in the valley. In a single recent year, geologists counted more than 50 separate rockfalls, dropping thousands of tons of stone from the walls above trails and campgrounds. Most hurt no one, but not all of them. Slabs the size of buildings have peeled off these walls with no trigger a hiker could see, crushing people who were simply standing in the wrong place. On the Mist Trail, a woman was killed by falling rock and ice after passing a closure sign. You can prepare for heat, you can respect the water, but you cannot negotiate with a cliff that decides, on a geological whim, to shed a piece of itself as you pass beneath. So why do people keep making the same fatal choices? Part of the answer is a psychological trap that mountaineers know well. Call it goal lock. The moment a destination, the top of the fall, the perfect rock, the shot everyone will envy, becomes more important than the quiet voice telling you to stop. Yosemite is engineered by nature to trigger it. The most dangerous spots are also the most photogenic, so the reward for crossing the line is always in view. Add a crowd, where one person crossing a railing gives everyone else permission, and social media, where an image's value rises with the risk behind it, and thousands of ordinary, intelligent people talk themselves past barriers that exist for one reason, because others, standing exactly where they're standing, have already died. And then there are the people the park simply swallows. Yosemite is enormous, 750,000 acres. Much of it steep, trackless backcountry where a person can walk out of sight and never be seen again. Since 2017, more than 30 visitors have been officially classified as missing here. Some wandered off a trail and vanished into terrain that searchers can barely reach. Some were experienced hikers who set out alone and never came back. The size that makes it breathtaking makes a full search almost impossible. A body can slip into a crevice, be buried by rockfall, or wash downriver and never surface. Search and rescue teams comb the wilderness for days, knowing that in this environment, a missing person's window of survival is measured in hours. Sometimes they find answers. Often, the mountain keeps them. Those rescues have become their own crisis. And this is where the locals' plea gets sharper. Yosemite's search and rescue crews respond to hundreds of emergencies every year, and the busier the park gets, the thinner they're stretched. Since early 2025, the National Park Service has lost close to a quarter of its permanent staff. At Yosemite, scientists and wildlife specialists have been pulled off their real jobs to empty trash cans and direct traffic. Fewer rangers are on the trails to warn people from the ledge or the river, right as record crowds pour in. The pattern in the casualty reports is grimly consistent. Most victims are men, many between 20 and 50. Most had access to every warning sign the park could post, and most ignored them. The people who love this place watch it grow both more crowded and less protected at once. If you like this video, don't forget to like and subscribe. It helps the channel grow and provide videos like this in the future. Thanks! Because the crowds aren't just a safety problem, they're eating the park alive. In 2024, Yosemite drew around 4 million visits, roughly 80% more than it did just 4 years earlier. On peak weekends, cars back up for 3 hours at the gate, and 6,000 vehicles can pack the valley in a single day, choking one of America's most protected landscapes with exhaust. Trampled meadows, eroded trails carved by people cutting switchbacks, overflowing dumpsters, human waste along the paths. The wilderness is being loved to death. For years, managers used a reservation system to cap the chaos during peak hours, and it worked. But for the 2026 season, federal officials scrapped it. When the park surveyed its own employees, 85% disapproved of the decision, predicting exactly what followed. 90-minute entry lines and visitors turned away at the gate. Stand back far enough and the whole thing becomes a story about us, not the mountain. Yosemite has been indifferent to human survival since long before there were humans to be indifferent to. The granite was here before us and will be here long after. What's changed is not the danger. The cliffs are exactly as tall, the water exactly as cold, the rock exactly as unstable as always. What's changed is how many of us arrive convinced that a paved path and a gift shop mean the wild is tamed. It hasn't. We arrive with the instincts of people who live in climate-controlled boxes and walk into a landscape that runs on physics and deep time and cares nothing for our plans. The locals begging tourists to slow down aren't trying to keep the beauty for themselves, they've simply watched what happens when reverence gets replaced by convenience. And here's the part that makes every one of these deaths so hard to bear. Almost all of them were preventable. Yosemite doesn't hide its warnings. The signs are at the railings. The rangers, what's left of them, say it out loud. The cold water, the crumbling rock, the 1,000-foot drops. None of it is mysterious, and none of it is random. It follows rules as old as the mountain itself. The only variable that ever changes is the choice each visitor makes when they reach the edge. To respect a place that has never once made an exception, or to step over the line for a photograph and gamble that the granite will make one for them. Yosemite isn't cruel. It's just being what it has always been. Vast, ancient, and utterly unmoved by whether you make it home. The people who live in its shadow are only asking that you remember that before you go.